A hero who ends every fight with a single punch falls into a universe where gods bleed and planets break. Here, strength is not a gift, it is a threat. The cosmos sees him not as a savior, but as a crack in the foundation of reality itself. So what happens when the most powerful being in existence is the one thing existence cannot allow? The sky above Manhattan split open with a sound like reality tearing at the seams, not the theatrical rip of a portal or the whisper of a teleportation spell, but something far more visceral, a fundamental wrongness that made the air itself scream. SHIELD agent Marcus Barlow dropped his coffee as every alarm in the helicarrier command deck erupted into shrieking chaos. Director Fury's voice cut through the cacophony with the precision of a scalpel, ordering full deployment protocols, scrambling every available asset from the raft to Wakanda. But Barlow's eyes were locked on the monitors, on the impossibility unfolding 6 miles above New York City, where a man in a yellow suit and red cape fell through the wound in space like a meteor wrapped in mundane clothing. Behind him, the negative zone hemorrhaged into Earth's dimension, and Annihilus came with it. The annihilation wave poured through the breach like locusts made of hate and chitin. Thousands of them, insectoid nightmares armed with cosmic lances and null field generators, their wings beating in perfect unison as they descended on the city below. Annihilus himself hung in the center of the swarm, the cosmic control rod blazing against his chest like a second sun. His mandibles clicked with something that might have been laughter. The Fantastic Four were already airborne. Reed's voice crackled over every emergency channel, calling for Avengers, X-Men, anyone who could reach Manhattan in the next 3 minutes. Because that was all the time they had before the first wave hit. And falling through the middle of it all, expression utterly blank, was the bald man in the hero costume. Saitama hit the ground in Times Square with enough force to crater the asphalt in a perfect circle 30 feet wide. Dust billowed outward in a ring, swallowing advertisements and pedestrians alike. The shockwave shattered every window for 2 blocks. He stood slowly, brushing concrete dust from his shoulders with the methodical care of someone who had done this too many times to count. Above him, the sky was turning black with alien bodies. He looked up, blinked once, then sighed, a sound of such profound disappointment that it seemed to carry weight. The first wave of Annihilation soldiers hit the street-level defenses like a tsunami. SHIELD agents unloaded automatic weapons that might as well have been throwing pebbles. Chitauri, who had survived Loki's invasion, joined the counterattack, their energy weapons carving through chitin and wing membrane. But for every alien that fell, 3 more took its place. The Human Torch streaked overhead, nova-hot, turning entire clusters into ash. But even he couldn't be everywhere. Barlow watched from the helicarrier as tactical markers turned red across the board. Civilian evacuation was failing. The wave was too fast, too coordinated, too overwhelming. Then Saitama started walking. Not running, not flying, walking, with the casual gait of someone heading to the grocery store. An Annihilation soldier dive-bombed him, cosmic lance crackling with energies that had shattered planets. Saitama raised one hand almost lazily and caught the lance mid-thrust. The alien's momentum stopped so completely that its body folded around the point of contact, chitin cracking like eggshell. Saitama looked at the twitching creature with mild curiosity, then flicked it. Just a flick, finger to forehead, the kind of gesture used to shoo away a fly. The alien became a projectile that broke the sound barrier 3 times before it punched through 6 buildings and disappeared into the Hudson River. Barlow felt his throat go dry. Every sensor on the helicarrier was screaming now, trying and failing to quantify what they had just witnessed. The energy output didn't match the result. The physics were impossible. Fury's single eye was locked on the feed, his jaw set in that particular way that meant someone was about to have a very bad day. "Get me a threat assessment," Fury growled, "and someone find out who the hell that is." 3 more aliens descended on Saitama from different vectors, coordinated, armed with weapons that had killed Kree champions. He sidestepped the first without looking, let the second's lance pass through the space his head had occupied, then punched the third, not hard, by his standards, a jab really, the kind thrown in a friendly sparring match. The alien exploded into red mist that painted the street for 30 yards. The remaining 2 hesitated, insect brains processing something they had no framework for. And in that moment of hesitation, Saitama grabbed them both by their wings and swung them into each other like cymbals. The crack echoed off skyscrapers. He dropped the twitching bodies and kept walking, heading vaguely north, still wearing that expression of terminal boredom. The thing landed beside him with a pavement-shattering thud, granite fists raised, orange stone eyes assessing. "Hey, pal, you're with us or against us?" Saitama glanced at him. "Oh, a rock guy." "Yeah, a rock guy. Now you gonna help or what?" A shadow fell over them both. Annihilus descended from the swarm like a god of vengeance, the cosmic control rod pulsing with power that made reality bend at its edges.
He was 15 feet of insectoid fury, wrapped in armor that had withstood the Big Bang's echo, his wings spreading wide enough to darken the street. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 1,000,000,000 conquered worlds. "Primitives, you will kneel before the living death that walks, or you will be annihilated with the rest of your puny species." The thing cracked his knuckles. "Buddy, I ain't kneel for nobody since Aunt Petunia made me go to church." Annihilus raised one clawed hand, energy coalescing into a sphere of pure destructive potential. Then Saitama stepped forward. "Hey," he said, voice flat, "can you give me a good fight?" The energy sphere detonated. It should have vaporized everything within a quarter-mile radius, should have carved Manhattan down to bedrock, should have announced the end of human resistance with a mushroom cloud visible from orbit. Instead, when the light cleared, Saitama was standing in the same spot, hand outstretched, having simply caught the blast. His cape fluttered in the residual wind. His expression hadn't changed. "Guess not," he said. Then he jumped. The movement was so fast that cameras caught only a yellow blur. One moment Saitama was on the ground. The next he was in front of Annihilus, suspended at eye level by momentum alone. The Conqueror had just enough time to process the wrongness before Saitama's fist connected with his chest. The sound wasn't an explosion. It was something cleaner, more final, a single concussive note that rang out across the city like a bell tolling the end of Mass. Annihilus shot backward, not flying, but launched like a ballistic missile at his own fleet. He hit the first wave of soldiers and went through them, each body he touched simply ceasing to exist, then through the second wave, then the third. He carved a tunnel through his own invasion force, a corridor of destruction that reached all the way back to the interdimensional breach. And when he finally struck the edge of the negative zone portal, the impact was enough to shatter the dimensional membrane. The portal collapsed, imploded really, sucking debris and alien corpses back through in a howling vortex. In 3 seconds, the sky was clear. In 5, the screaming stopped. In 10, Manhattan was left in shell-shocked silence, staring at the thousands of alien bodies littering the streets and the completely undamaged bald man floating slowly back down to Earth. He landed next to the thing, who was staring at him with an expression that mixed awe and horror in equal measure. "Well," Ben said slowly, "that's new." Saitama looked around at the devastation, at the fires and rubble and spreading pools of alien ichor. "Is this a normal Tuesday for you guys?" "Pretty much, yeah." "Huh. I thought my world had a lot of monsters." The helicarrier descended through the smoke, shield agents already scrambling to secure the area, catalog the dead, and most importantly, get eyes on the man who had just single-handedly repelled an invasion that should have taken the combined might of Earth's heroes to stop. Barlow was in the first transport down, hand on his sidearm, not because he thought it would help, but because protocol demanded it. His earpiece was alive with chatter. Fury demanding answers, Maria Hill coordinating containment, some analyst already proposing an Omega-level classification. Saitama was sitting on a chunk of rubble when Barlow found him, cape draped over his shoulders, staring at the sky with eyes that held nothing but disappointment. "Sir, I'm going to need you to come with me." Saitama looked at him, really looked, taking in the tactical armor, the shield insignia, the way Barlow's hand hovered near his weapon. "Am I in trouble?" "It depends. Who are you?" "Saitama. I'm a hero for fun." He said it the way someone might say they were an accountant, utterly devoid of pride or shame. "Also, I have no idea where I am." "You're in New York, Manhattan, United States of America, planet Earth." "Oh." Saitama frowned slightly. "That's not right. I was fighting this weird purple guy who kept teleporting, and then I punched through one of his portals and—" He trailed off, the frown deepening. "Did I break something?" Barlow felt a migraine forming. "Sir, you just repelled an interdimensional invasion. You punched a cosmic warlord hard enough to close a breach in reality. He gestured at the crater, the destruction, the slowly settling dust. "You did all of this with your bare hands." "Yeah. So, am I in trouble or not?" Before Barlow could answer, Reed Richards materialized from the crowd of heroes converging on Ground Zero, his body stretching to reach them faster, his expression already calculating. Behind him came Sue, Johnny, still burning low with residual flame, and Ben, looking like he'd seen God and found him lacking. "Okay," Tony said, pointing at Saitama. "I'm going to need you to explain how you just violated about 17 laws of physics, thermodynamics, and basic common sense." Saitama blinked. "I work out a lot. You do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and a 10-kilometer run every single day."
The silence that followed was profound. Reed's expression cycled through disbelief, calculation, and something approaching existential horror. Sue's force fields flickered unconsciously, her mind trying to reconcile what she'd witnessed with anything resembling sense. Johnny started laughing, then stopped when he realized no one else was. "That's it?" Tony said finally. "That's your origin story? You did a moderately rigorous exercise routine and became capable of punching holes in dimensional fabric?" "I went bald, too," Saitama offered helpfully. "Probably pushed myself too hard." Reed was muttering now, pulling up holographic equations that died as fast as he generated them. Impossible. The energy expenditure alone would require— No. The muscle density needed to generate that level of force without tearing yourself apart, the bone structure, the neurological processing speed, none of it adds up. You'd need to violate conservation of energy, momentum, mass, possibly causality itself. "I just hit things really hard," Saitama said. "It's not complicated." But it was. Barlow could see it in the way every hero present was looking at the bald man, the way their expressions shifted from relief to something far more complex. Because if Saitama was telling the truth, if he really was this strong from simple exercise, then everything they knew about power, about limits, about the fundamental nature of what made someone super was wrong. And if he was lying, then they had an entity on their hands that could reshape reality itself and chose to wear a discount hero costume while doing it. Either option was terrifying. Fury's voice crackled in Barlow's ear, cold and decisive. "Bring him in. Full containment protocols. I want every scanner we have on him. And I want Dr. Strange, Professor X, and Hank Pym on standby. Whatever he is,
We need to understand it before something else shows up that he can't punch away. Barlow opened his mouth to relay the order, but Saitama was already walking away, heading down Fifth Avenue with that same meandering gait, hands in his pockets, cape dragging through alien blood and rubble. "Hey, is there a grocery store around here? I'm kind of hungry." "Sir, you need to stop." Saitama stopped, looking back with mild curiosity. "Why?" "Because we have questions. Lots of questions. And because—" Barlow felt his jaw tighten. "Because you are currently classified as an unknown entity with Omega-level threat potential, and standard protocol demands containment, pending full assessment." "Oh." Saitama considered this. "Will there be food?" "Yes." "Okay." He walked back over, standing placidly as SHIELD agents formed a perimeter around him, weapons trained but hands shaking. He didn't seem to notice, or if he did, he didn't care. His mind was already somewhere else, probably wondering what the cafeteria menu looked like. The helicarrier's detention level had been designed to hold the Hulk, reinforced adamantium walls layered with vibranium mesh, psionic dampeners courtesy of Wakandan tech, and gravity wells capable of generating 50 times normal Earth weight, and enough firepower built into the walls to level a city block. Saitama sat in the center of it all on a steel bench, eating a sandwich someone had brought him, watching a small television showing news coverage of the invasion. His expression was the same as when he'd been fighting, bored and faintly disappointed. Fury watched him through 6 inches of reinforced glass, arms crossed, eye locked on the most dangerous thing to ever sit in his ship. "Tell me what we're dealing with." Reed Richards pulled up holographic displays, each one more damning than the last. Based on the seismic readings from his landing, he hit with the force of an asteroid meteor strike. Based on the atmospheric displacement when he jumped, he broke Mach 20 without visible effort. Based on the energy transfer when he struck Annihilus, he generated at least 12 gigatons of TNT equivalent in the space of his fist. And based on the structural integrity of his body throughout all of this, Reed's voice went quiet, he didn't even try. "Director, this man could crack the planet in half if he sneezed too hard. Can we contain him? No. Nothing we have would even slow him down. The walls, the gravity wells, the dampeners, they're theater. If he wanted to leave, he'd leave and we couldn't stop him." Reed turned from the displays, his face drawn. "The real question is why he's staying." In the cell, Saitama finished his sandwich and stared at the television with increasing confusion. A reporter was describing him using words like savior and champion and miracle. Heroes were being interviewed, each offering theories about his origin, his powers, his intentions. None of them were right. He could see himself in the reflection of the screen, the same face he'd seen for 3 years, ordinary and forgettable. The face of someone who would chase strength until he'd found something past its limits and discovered only emptiness on the other side. He wondered if any of these heroes knew what that felt like, to be so strong that nothing mattered anymore, to search for a fight that would make his blood sing again and find only disappointment after disappointment. He'd thought maybe a different world would be different, but watching that alien warlord fold under a casual punch, he'd felt the same hollow absence he always did. The door to the observation room opened. A woman entered, red hair and sharp green eyes, moving with controlled grace of someone trained in 30 different ways to kill. She was scanning him with equipment that probably cost more than a small country's GDP. Barlow recognized her. Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow, one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s most dangerous assets. She pulled up her results and went very still. "What is it?" Fury demanded. "Nothing," she said softly. "The scans show nothing. No radiation signature, no exotic particles, no dimensional bleed, no genetic markers beyond baseline human. His cells, his brain activity, his energy output when resting, they're all completely normal. It's like scanning an accountant." "That's impossible." "I know." But she looked up at Fury, and there was something in her eyes that Barlow had never seen before. Fear. But it gets worse. I ran an aging analysis on his cellular structure. Based on telomere length and accumulated damage, he should be in his mid-20s, perfectly normal.
But when I cross-referenced his bone density, neural pathways, and muscle memory patterns, they show evidence of exactly what he claimed. Systematic, repetitive exercise. Nothing exotic. No super soldier serum, no mutation trigger, no cosmic radiation, just 3 years of push-ups and running.
The room went quiet. Somewhere in the depths of the ship, alarms were blaring as other threats demanded attention. But here, in this moment, every mind was locked on the impossibility, sitting behind reinforced walls, eating a sandwich. "Get Strange," Fury said finally. "Get him now." The Sanctum Sanctorum existed in Greenwich Village the way a knife exists in flesh, present but fundamentally separate. Dr. Stephen Strange arrived on the helicarrier in a bloom of golden light, the cloak of levitation billowing behind him, his expression already grim. He'd felt the dimensional breach, had been preparing countermeasures when it simply stopped, collapsed in on itself with a violence that suggested external force rather than internal failure. Now, looking at the readings S.H.I.E.L.D. provided, looking at the man responsible, Strange felt the first stirrings of something he'd trained himself to suppress: dread. He cast diagnostic spells with hands that moved in patterns older than spoken language. The eye of Agamotto opened against his chest, green light washing over Saitama's cell, seeing through matter and energy into the fundamental essence of what made a soul. Strange had seen gods with this sight, had looked upon Dormammu and the Vishanti and entities that predated the universe itself. He had seen the Hulk's rage given form, had witnessed the Phoenix Force burning across dimensions, had stood before the living tribunal and comprehended, however briefly, the scope of cosmic law. What he saw in Saitama made him take a step back. Nothing. Not absence, not void, but a perfect, impenetrable nothing. Every spell he cast slid off the man like water off glass. The eye of Agamotto showed only a human shape, baseline and unremarkable, despite all evidence suggesting otherwise. It was as if reality itself had agreed to pretend this man was normal, was cooperating in a vast cosmic joke, and the punchline was that everyone else had to deal with the consequences. "Well?" Fury asked. Strange closed the eye slowly. "He's human." "Bull. I don't mean baseline human. I mean he registers as human to every form of mystical and cosmic lore I can access. No extra-dimensional patron, no mutation, no enhancement, no deals with demons or gods. By every law of magic and cosmic order, he should be an accountant in Des Moines. But he's not." Strange turned to face Fury, and his expression was grave. "Director, I've seen entities that could unmake solar systems. I've bargained with things that eat galaxies. I've stood at the edge of the dark dimension and matched wills with its master. And I'm telling you, that man is more dangerous than all of them." "Why?" "Because he doesn't fit. The universe has rules, fundamental laws that govern power and cost. Magic demands sacrifice. Mutations arise from specific genetic triggers. Cosmic power requires worthy vessels or catastrophic accidents. Even the Infinity Stones follow rules. But him? He broke the rules so completely that reality can't even acknowledge the break. He's an error in the code of existence, and errors like that draw attention." Strange didn't answer immediately. He was seeing something in his mind's eye, a cascade of possible futures spinning out from this moment. In most of them, Saitama simply existed, a walking natural disaster waiting for something to point him at. In some, he grew bored and left, punching through dimensional barriers until he found his way home. In a few, something found him first. In one, the sky opened and gods fell, screaming from their thrones. "The kind that could end everything," Strange said quietly. "I need to consult with the Vishanti.
Do not, he fixed Fury with a stare that made demons reconsider their life choices. Any to antagonize him. No tests, no provocations, no attempts to measure his limits. Treat him like a guest, because if he stops being cooperative, we're all dead. He left in a swirl of golden light, leaving behind a room full of people who had just been told they were living on the edge of oblivion. Barlow felt his hands shaking and forced them still. He joined S.H.I.E.L.D. to protect people, to stand between the world and the threats that emerged from the shadows. But this wasn't a threat, not in any conventional sense. This was something that made threats irrelevant. In the cell, Saitama finished his push-ups, exactly 100, and started on sit-ups. His face held that same bored expression, like he was waiting for something that would never come. Outside, the world continued to turn, unaware that it now hosted something that could stop it with a touch. The news cycle moved fast. Within 6 hours, Saitama was on every channel, every website, every screen in the civilized world. They called him the One-Punch Man, the Yellow Comet, the Bald Savior. Footage of him catching Annihilus's blast went viral within minutes. Theories proliferated faster than S.H.I.E.L.D. could contain them. Mutant, alien, secret government project gone right, the second coming, a hoax somehow, some way, despite the crater and the bodies and the 1,000 witnesses. Inside the helicarrier, Fury made a decision. We can't hold him, and we can't let him wander around unmonitored. So we make him an ally.
Prep a liaison packet. Barlow. He turned to face the younger agent. You're on babysitting duty. Get him anything he needs, answer his questions, and for God's sake, keep him happy. Sir, I'm a field agent, not a... You're whatever I need you to be, and right now, I need you to make sure the man who can destroy the planet doesn't get bored enough to test whether he can punch the moon. Move. Barlow moved. He found Saitama in the cafeteria an hour later, the detention cell empty, and no one quite sure when he'd left. He was eating his way through a mountain of food, rice and chicken and vegetables piled high, eating with the mechanical efficiency of someone fueling a machine. Other agents gave him a wide berth, the circle of empty tables around him a buffer zone maintained by instinct. Saitama, Barlow said, sitting down across from him, we need to talk about what happens next. You're not from here, you don't know the threats this world faces, and frankly, we don't know what to do with you. Barlow kept his voice level, professional. S.H.I.E.L.D. would like to offer you a consultant position, room and board, a salary, access to our resources while you figure out how to get home. In exchange, if something shows up that we can't handle, you help. Saitama paused mid-bite. Do I have to wear a uniform? No. Do I have to follow orders? We'd prefer if you coordinated with our teams, but no, you'd be an independent contractor. Okay. Saitama resumed eating. Do you guys get a lot of strong monsters here? Barlow thought about the list of threats he'd encountered in 5 years with S.H.I.E.L.D., the Chitauri invasion, the Dark Elves, Ultron, the Sokovia incident, the brief, terrifying appearance of Thanos' heralds, beaten back but promising return. Yeah, he said, we do. For the first time since arriving, Saitama smiled. It was a small thing, barely a curve of his lips, but it carried a weight of hope that made Barlow's chest tighten. This man, this impossibly strong being, was just looking for a good fight, for something that would make him feel alive again, and Barlow had just promised him exactly that. He wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake. The apartment S.H.I.E.L.D. setup was in Brooklyn. A modest 2-bedroom with good security and better surveillance. Saitama moved in with nothing but the clothes on his back, seemed perfectly content with the arrangement, and immediately started unpacking a life that consisted of punching things. Barlow filed reports, answered questions from increasingly concerned superiors, and tried to explain to people that no, they couldn't just classify him as a weapon and point him at problems. He was a person, strange and terrifying, but a person. 3 days after the invasion, the Avengers asked to meet him. They gathered at the new facility upstate, the one built after Sokovia fell. Tony had insisted on neutral ground, somewhere with space to run if things went sideways. Captain America stood at the center, shield mag-locked to his arm, trying to project calm he didn't feel. Thor was beside him, Mjolnir in hand, his divine sight seeing something in Saitama that made his jaw tight. Bruce Banner was there via hologram, the Hulk too volatile to risk. Natasha and Clint flanked the exits. Sam Wilson hovered outside, wings spread, ready to extract if needed. And Wanda Maximoff stood in the corner, red eyes wide, mind touching something that made her want to scream. Saitama walked in wearing a hoodie and jeans, cape left at home, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Hi," he said. "Am I in trouble again?" "No," Steve said, stepping forward, offering a hand. "We just wanted to meet you properly. Thank you for what you did in Manhattan. You saved a lot of lives." He shook his hand with the careful gentleness of someone terrified of breaking things. "It wasn't a big deal. The bug guy was pretty weak." "Weak?" Tony's voice dripped with disbelief from where he stood by the windows, armor on standby. "Weak? You punched Annihilus so hard he went through his own army. Annihilus, who nearly conquered the universe, who commands the annihilation wave, who has personally killed billions. Weak."
Yeah, Saitama looked genuinely confused. "He went down in one punch. That's pretty weak." Thor rumbled forward, lightning playing along his shoulders. "Mortal, I am Thor Odinson, god of thunder, prince of Asgard. I have fought frost giants and fire demons, have stood against the destroyer and lived. I would test your strength." "Okay," Saitama said, "but can we do it outside? I don't want to wreck your building." They moved to the training grounds, a reinforced space designed to handle Hulk-level threats. The Avengers formed a perimeter, some watching with curiosity, others with barely concealed alarm. Thor took position across from Saitama, Mjolnir spinning in his hand, storm clouds gathering overhead, despite the clear day. Lightning kissed the ground around him, the air tasting of ozone and divinity. "Come at me with your full strength," Thor commanded. "Hold nothing back." "Are you sure?" Saitama looked concerned. "I don't really have a half-strength setting anymore." "I am a god, mortal. You cannot harm me." Saitama shrugged. "Okay." He walked forward. No stance, no preparation. And threw a punch. Not his serious punch, not even close, but a jab, the kind used to test an opponent's defense. His fist moved faster than cameras could track, a blur that connected with Thor's chest before the god could raise Mjolnir. The sound was a thunderclap. Thor left the ground, became a missile that tore through the air, crashed through the reinforced walls at the edge of the compound, and carved a trench 300 yards long before stopping. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Thor stood, armor cracked, beard singed, Mjolnir's handle groaning under his grip. He looked at Saitama with an expression caught between awe and rage. "Again!" he roared, and lightning answered, the sky opening up in a deluge of divine wrath. He flew at Saitama wreathed in storm, Mjolnir leading, channeling the power that had shattered mountains and split moons. The hammer came down with enough force to flatten a city. Saitama caught it, one-handed. The shockwave flattened trees for a quarter mile. The ground beneath his feet cracked, but held. He looked at the hammer, at Thor straining against his grip, muscles cording with effort, divine strength meeting something that didn't bend. This is a nice hammer. Pretty heavy. He let go. Thor stumbled back, panting, looking at his weapon like it had betrayed him. Around them, the Avenger stood in shocked silence. Even Tony had gone quiet, his mind racing through calculations that refused to resolve. "Barlow," Steve said quietly, "what exactly did S.H.I.E.L.D.'s assessment say about his upper limits?" Barlow, who had accompanied Saitama as his liaison, cleared his throat. "They couldn't find any, sir. Every test they ran, he wasn't even trying. It's like asking, what's the upper limit of mathematics? The question doesn't make sense in context." Wanda moved forward, power crackling around her fingers, red chaos magic that had rewritten reality itself. "Let me see your mind," she said to Saitama, voice shaking. "Please, I need to understand." Saitama looked at her, at the desperation in her eyes, and nodded. "Okay." She reached out, her consciousness touching his, and immediately wished she hadn't. It wasn't that his mind was strong or complex or strange. It was that it was boring. Monumentally, cosmically boring. She saw the memories, 3 years of identical training, the same routine repeated until his body broke past every human limit and kept going. She saw the transformation, gradual and inexorable, as something fundamental rewrote itself. She saw his first real fight afterward, the joy of it, the pure, transcendent joy of feeling alive. And then she saw every fight since, each one ending in a single punch. The joy curdling into disappointment, into resignation, into empty habit. She saw a man who had chased strength until he'd caught it, and found only loneliness on the other side. Wanda pulled back, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "For what?" Saitama asked, genuinely confused. "For what it cost you." She looked at the others, at their confusion, and shook her head. "He's telling the truth, all of it, the training, the strength, the boredom. He just wanted to be a hero, and he succeeded so completely that nothing matters anymore." The silence that followed was profound. These were Earth's mightiest heroes, people who had fought gods and monsters and each other. They had all paid prices for their power, carried scars physical and mental, but they had never lost the thrill of the fight, the satisfaction of victory hard won. Looking at Saitama, seeing the emptiness behind his eyes, they understood for the first time that there were worse things than losing. Steve was the one who broke the silence. "We'd like you to join us," he said, voice steady. "The Avengers. You'd have a team, people to talk to, purpose beyond just finding strong opponents. We can't promise you the fight you're looking for, but we can promise you that the fights we do have matter."
Saitama looked at him for a long moment. "Do I have to wear a uniform?" Despite everything, Steve smiled. "No, though we might get you a better costume." "This one's fine." Saitama tugged at his hoodie. "My cape's at home, though. It's pretty cool." Then it's settled. Steve offered his hand again, and this time, when Saitama shook it, there was something in his expression that might have been hope. Small and fragile, but there. The first official mission came 2 weeks later. A Kree strike force had landed in Nevada, seeking to retrieve a Terrigen crystal deposit that S.H.I.E.L.D. had secured after the Inhuman crisis. They were led by Ronan the Accuser, his universal weapon crackling with power that had condemned civilizations. Steve briefed the team in the Quinjet, tactical displays showing force estimates, probable powers, recommended approach vectors, standard Avengers protocol refined through dozens of crises. Then Saitama raised his hand. "Can I just punch them?" Tony, piloting, laughed before realizing the question was serious. That's not really how we do things. We assess the threat, coordinate our approach, minimize collateral damage, attempt diplomatic solutions where possible. But I could just punch them, right? Technically, yes. But, okay. Saitama stood, walked to the Quinjet's rear door, and opened it. Wind screamed through the cabin at 30,000 feet. He looked back at the team, all of them frozen in various states of alarm. "I'll meet you there." He jumped, just stepped out into open air and fell, cape materializing from wherever he'd stored it, billowing behind him like a crimson banner. The team rushed to the windows, watching him plummet, waiting for him to fly or catch himself or do anything other than accelerate toward terminal velocity. He didn't. He just fell, arms crossed, expression bored, until he hit the ground. The impact was visible from orbit, a pillar of dust and debris that punched through the cloud layer, the shockwave shattering every window in a 10-mile radius. When it cleared, Saitama stood in the center of a crater that would take geologists months to explain, directly in front of Ronin's forward position. The Kree soldiers froze, weapons half raised, their tactical training trying to process the entry method and coming up empty. Ronin stepped forward, armor gleaming, universal weapon held ready. He was 8 feet of fanatic devotion, wrapped in genocidal intent. His voice carried the authority of one who spoke for an empire. "Terran, you stand before Ronin the Accuser. Kneel, and your death will be swift." Saitama looked up at him. "Are you strong?" "I am Kree. I have destroyed rebellions across 1,000 worlds. I have stood against gods and emerged victorious. I am strength incarnate." "Cool." Saitama's face brightened slightly. "Let's fight then." Ronin brought his weapon down with enough force to shatter a tank. Saitama caught it the same way he'd caught Thor's hammer. One hand wrapped around the shaft, energy discharge washing over him harmlessly. He looked at Ronin, at the confusion spreading across the Kree, and sighed. "Wait, don't tell me. One punch, right?" "What?" Saitama punched him. Not hard, not by his standards, but hard enough that Ronin's armor cracked, his weapon shattered, and he became a ballistic object that disappeared over the horizon in 3 seconds. The remaining Kree soldiers stared at the spot their leader had occupied, then at Saitama, then at each other. One of them dropped his weapon, then another. Then the whole formation, a dozen elite Kree warriors bred for conquest, surrendered to a bald man in a yellow suit. The Quinjet landed 5 minutes later, the Avengers emerging to find Saitama sitting on a rock, watching S.H.I.E.L.D. agents take the Kree into custody. Steve approached cautiously, shield still raised, assessing the situation with tactical precision born from decades of combat. "Status?" "I punched the big guy and everyone gave up. Is that normal?" "No, that's not normal." He looked at the huge crater, the scattered debris, the shell-shocked prisoners. "You're supposed to coordinate with the team. We had a plan." "Oh, sorry." Saitama stood, brushing dust from his cape. "Should I not punch them next time?" Tony landed beside them, faceplate retracting. "Okay, I'm going to say what we're all thinking. This is insane. We trained for this. We planned for this. We have protocols and procedures. And Saitama just jumped out of a plane and solved the problem by hitting it really hard. Isn't that what we do?" The question hung in the air, uncomfortably accurate. Because yes, stripped of tactics and technology and teamwork, that was essentially what they did. They hit problems until the problem stopped. Saitama just did it more efficiently, more completely, and with less drama.
It made every careful strategy feel like theater, every hard-won victory feel diminished. And the worst part was, he didn't even realize he was doing it. Natasha was studying Saitama with the intensity she usually reserved for deep cover missions. "How did you know where to land?" "Oh, I just aimed for the military-looking guys. Figured that was probably right." "You jumped out of a plane at 30,000 feet with no coordinates, no communication, and just guessed where the enemy would be." "Yeah." "Was I close?" "You landed directly in front of their command structure." She exchanged a glance with Steve, one of those wordless communications that came from years of partnership. This was going to be a problem, not Saitama himself, but the paradigm shift he represented. How did you plan missions when one team member could solve any problem instantly? How did you maintain team cohesion when everyone else was fundamentally irrelevant to the outcome? How did you stay heroes when someone existed who made heroism obsolete? They didn't have answers yet, but flying back to base, watching Saitama stare out the window with that hollow expression, Barlow realized something the others hadn't yet. Saitama wasn't trying to make them irrelevant. He was trying to find a place where he mattered again, where his strength meant something beyond ending threats before they began. He wanted to be part of something, even if that something couldn't match his power. He just wanted to not be alone. The missions continued. A dragon emerged from the savage land, 50 feet of prehistoric fury, and Saitama killed it with a finger flick before anyone else arrived. Hydra attempted to resurrect a celestial corpse in Siberia, and Saitama punched it hard enough to scatter the pieces across 3 time zones. The Masters of Evil assembled to rob the Baxter Building, and Saitama walked through them like a man pushing through a beaded curtain, leaving unconscious supervillains scattered behind him. Each victory was absolute, each threat neutralized in seconds, each mission report filed with decreasing enthusiasm. The other Avengers started to adjust. Sam and Clint took to treating deployments with Saitama like training exercises, focusing on evacuation and crowd control since combat was essentially handled. Bruce watched from afar with academic fascination, the Hulk inside him curious about this being who made even world-breaking rage seem quaint. Tony threw himself into trying to quantify the unquantifiable, building scanner after scanner that all returned the same impossible results. Natasha and Steve added him to tactical planning, trying to find ways to use his power strategically rather than as a blunt instrument. Only Thor remained troubled, seeing something in Saitama that his divine nature recoiled from. He sought counsel with Heimdall, whose all-seeing eyes could pierce any veil, but even the Guardian of the Bifrost could offer no answers. To his sight, Saitama was a blank space, a void where a person should be, and that absence terrified him more than any enemy. "He is wrong," Thor told the Avengers in a meeting Saitama wasn't invited to. "Not evil, not malevolent, but wrong. Like a glitch in the weaving of fate, a thread that should not exist. The Norns cannot see his future. The All-Father's ravens return empty-beaked from observing him. He is outside destiny itself." "So what do we do?" Steve asked. "We pray that whatever comes looking for him is merciful when it arrives." Thor's expression was grim. "Because something will come. Aberrations of this magnitude always draw attention from forces beyond mortal comprehension." He was right. The first sign was subtle. Strange appeared at Avengers Tower 3 months after Saitama's arrival, his expression grave, the eye of Agamotto pulsing erratically. "We have a problem," he said without preamble. "The cosmic entities have noticed him." "Who?" "The big ones. The abstracts. Death, entropy, infinity, eternity. They're aware of Saitama's existence, and they're not happy about it. I've been receiving warnings through every mystical channel I have access to. Something about universal constants being violated, fundamental forces being disrupted. They see him as a cancer in the fabric of existence." Steve stood slowly. "Are they going to move against him?" "Not directly. They can't. He exists in a space their power doesn't reach, which is precisely the problem." Strange began pacing, agitation showing through his usually controlled demeanor. "Think of the universe as a machine with specific tolerances. Every part fits together, balanced by laws that govern everything from gravity to the strong nuclear force. Saitama is a component that doesn't fit those tolerances, but somehow functions anyway. His presence is causing ripples, small now, but potentially catastrophic if left unchecked." "Ripples like what?" "Like the living tribunal taking interest." The room glowed cold. Even Tony, who made a habit of challenging authority, looked shaken. The living tribunal was beyond gods, beyond abstracts, the arbiter of cosmic law itself. It maintained balance across the multiverse, and when it judged something a threat to that balance, it acted with absolute finality.
"You're talking about execution," Steve said flatly. I'm talking about multiversal triage. If the choice is between one man and all of reality, the math is simple.
The hell it is. Tony was on his feet now, arc reactor glowing brighter. We don't sacrifice people because cosmic bureaucrats get their robes in a twist. That's not how this works.
Then how does it work, Stark? How do you fight something that maintains the structure of reality itself? How do you argue with the concept of law when your defense is that the law shouldn't apply? Strange's voice rose, frustration bleeding through. I've seen what happens when the tribunal judges against someone. They don't just die. They stop having ever existed. Every moment, every action, every relationship erased from causality. And if it decides Saitama is too dangerous, nothing we do will matter. The silence that followed was broken by a quiet voice from the doorway. Are you guys talking about killing me? They turned to find Saitama standing there, cape draped over his shoulders, expression unreadable. He'd heard everything, had walked in during Strange's explanation, and now stood looking at the people who had become the closest thing he had to friends in this world. Barlow, who had been standing watch outside, looked stricken, his hand halfway to his weapon in instinctive response. Steve was the first to recover. No, we're talking about protecting you from a threat we don't fully understand yet. But if it came down to me or everyone else, you'd pick everyone else, right? Saitama's voice was calm, almost curious. That's the right call. I'm just one person. It's not that simple, Steve started, but Saitama cut him off with a raised hand. It's okay. I get it. I'm dangerous. I've always been dangerous, even back home. The Hero Association kept files on me, contingency plans in case I went rogue. Some of the other heroes were scared of me. I'm used to it. He looked at Strange. What's the living tribunal like? Old, powerful beyond measure, fair in its way, but absolute. It doesn't negotiate, doesn't compromise. It judges based on multiversal law, and its decisions are final. Is it strong? The question hung in the air like a blade. Strange's face went pale as he realized what Saitama was asking, what he was hoping for. Don't, he said quietly. Don't make this about finding a good fight. The stakes are too high. I wasn't. I was just curious. But something in Saitama's eyes had changed, a spark of interest that had been absent for months. The possibility of facing something truly cosmic, something that might actually push him, had lit a fire that all their missions couldn't. And that, more than anything, made Strange's blood run cold. Because if Saitama fought the living tribunal and won, reality itself would be in jeopardy. And if he fought and lost, he'd be erased. And they'd never know if they could have saved him. There were no good options. The weeks that followed were tense. Saitama continued his missions, but now there was an edge to them, an anticipation. Strange maintained vigil, monitoring cosmic channels for any sign of the tribunal's approach. The Avengers tried to maintain normalcy while planning for a threat that might be beyond planning. And then, on a Tuesday afternoon in late October, the sky opened, not with a tear or portal, but with a presence, a weight that pressed down on reality like a hand on fabric. Every mystic on Earth felt it simultaneously, the arrival of something so fundamental that existence itself bent around it. Strange materialized at Avengers Tower in a blaze of golden light, his face ashen. It's here, the tribunal. It's manifesting in Earth's atmosphere, and it's calling for Saitama. The team assembled in minutes, every available hero converging on the tower. The sky above New York had darkened, not with clouds, but with the sheer presence of cosmic law made manifest. A figure appeared in the air 3 miles up, so large that looking at it hurt, so complex that the human mind skittered away from comprehending its form. 3 faces, or perhaps one face seen from 3 angles simultaneously, each representing a different aspect of judgment. Gold and crimson robes that might have been energy or matter or neither. Eyes that held the weight of infinity. The living tribunal had come to judge. Its voice, when it spoke, resonated through every living thing on the planet, bypassing ears to speak directly to consciousness. Anomaly. You who exist outside causality, you who violate fundamental law, present yourself for judgment."
Saitama stood on the tower's landing pad, looking up at the cosmic entity with an expression that mixed boredom and something else, something hungry. "You're here for me? You are assessed. Your existence creates paradox. Your presence distorts the balance of universal constants. You must be corrected or excised." Strange stepped forward, every protection spell he knew active, knowing they were useless but casting them anyway. "Great Tribunal, I speak for Earth, for this dimension. The being you judge has committed no crime, violated no cosmic law knowingly. He is simply strong. That is not grounds for execution. Strength is not the violation. Impossibility is the violation. He should not be, yet he is. This creates cascade failure in the mathematics of existence. The equation must balance." Thor raised Mjolnir, lightning dancing along his arms. "Then it will balance without his death. We stand with him, Tribunal. Judge all of us if you must. Your loyalty is noted and irrelevant. This matter transcends species, dimension, timeline. The anomaly will be removed." The Tribunal raised one hand, or perhaps all hands simultaneously, and reality began to unright itself around Saitama. Not attacking him, but simply decreeing that the space he occupied should be empty, that the causality chain that led to his existence should terminate before beginning. It should have worked. The Tribunal's judgments were absolute, its power derived from the fundamental structure of the multiverse itself. When it decreed something, reality obeyed. Saitama didn't disappear. He stood exactly where he had been, cape fluttering in a wind that came from nowhere, looking at the space around him where existence had tried and failed to erase him. "Huh," he said. That tickled a little. For the first time in its incomprehensibly long existence, the living Tribunal experienced something approaching confusion. Its middle face, the one representing equity, focused fully on Saitama. "Impossible. You cannot resist decree. All things bow to cosmic law." "I guess I don't," Saitama said. Then with something that might have been eagerness, "Does that mean we're going to fight?" "There is no fight. There is only judgment and execution. You will comply." "Make me." The Tribunal attacked, not with energy or matter, but with law itself, rewriting the rules that governed Saitama's existence. It decreed that objects with mass could not exceed certain force outputs. It decreed that biological entities had upper limits to their strength. It decreed that impossibility was impossible, and therefore Saitama could not be. Every decree failed. Saitama stood untouched, a fixed point around which cosmic law bent and broke. The Tribunal's three faces showed something that might have been alarm, and it began to truly exert itself, reaching deeper into the fundamental code of reality, pulling on principles that predated matter and energy. It decreed that Saitama's atoms should fly apart, that the strong nuclear force holding him together should fail. His atoms didn't move. It decreed that time should flow backward for him, unmaking every moment that led to his strength. Time continued forward. It decreed that he should simply cease, not dead, but unexistence, a concept removed from the database of reality. Saitama yawned. "Are you done?" he asked. "Because if you're going to judge me, you should probably actually try." The Tribunal's power surged, light and darkness and concepts that had no names pouring from its form. The sky cracked. The ground beneath Avengers' tower began to liquefy as the laws governed matter became suggestions. Strange's protections shattered like glass. every spell he'd ever learned made irrelevant by the sheer scope of what was unfolding. The other heroes fell back, unable to even remain standing in the presence of cosmic might unleashed without restraint. Through it all, Saitama stood firm, watching the light show with mild interest. "Huh," he said. When the tribunal paused, presumably to observe the effect of its assault, "My turn." He jumped, the same casual movement he'd used to leave the Quinjet, to reach Annihilus, to cross any distance that needed crossing. But this time, when his feet left the ground, the act carried weight. He accelerated not through space, but through concept, moving from ground level to cosmic height in a span too brief for measurement. And his fist, ordinary and unremarkable, connected with the tribunal's central face. The sound was silence, the impact so absolute that it consumed all other phenomena, creating a pocket of null where nothing existed but fist and face and the moment between them. Then the tribunal moved, not flying, but displaced, pushed back by pure kinetic transfer that shouldn't have been possible, shouldn't have existed, but did because Saitama had made it real through the simple act of punching. The cosmic entity stopped itself after 1,000 miles, its robes billowing, its faces locked in an expression that might have been shock. "You struck physically, directly." "Yeah," he said, standing in the air now through sheer refusal to fall, cape streaming behind him. "You were judging me, so I figured I'd judge you back. You're strong, really strong, but—" And here his expression shifted, that empty disappointment returning. "Not strong enough. One punch, just like always."
This is unprecedented, unacceptable. Reality itself is at stake. Then reality shouldn't have sent only one of you. Saitama's voice carried no triumph, no satisfaction, just the hollow ache of another opponent falling short. I thought maybe, just maybe, a cosmic law thing would be different, would actually push me. But you're just another strong guy who can't take a punch. The tribunal floated in silence, its multiple aspects conferring with each other in ways that transcended language. Around them, reality was already healing, laws reasserting themselves, the damage caused by their clash mending through the universe's inherent resilience. But something had changed, something fundamental. For the first time, cosmic law had been defied, not through trickery or loopholes, but through simple, overwhelming, impossible strength. Finally, the tribunal spoke, and its voice held something new, uncertainty. You are beyond judgment, beyond law, beyond the structures that maintain existence. You are proof that the system can fail. And yet, it paused, 3 faces focusing on Saitama with something approaching respect. You do not abuse this power. You seek only challenge, only purpose. You are dangerous not in intent, but in existence. So, what now? Saitama asked. You keep trying to erase me? Or do we call it even? Neither. The tribunal withdraws its judgment. You may exist, but know this, anomaly. You have drawn the attention of forces beyond even the tribunal. There are older things, deeper laws, beings that predate this iteration of reality. They will come, and when they do, your strength may not be enough. Good, Saitama said, and for the first time in months, he smiled. Really smiled, with genuine hope. Tell them to bring it. The tribunal faded, not fleeing, but departing, its judgment suspended indefinitely. Reality sighed as its presence lifted, the weight of cosmic law removed from Earth's shoulders. The gathered heroes slowly rose, looking at Saitama with expressions that mixed relief, awe, and a new kind of fear. He'd just fought the living tribunal to a standstill. He'd punched cosmic law in the face and won. And he was disappointed that it hadn't been a better fight. Strange approached slowly, the eye of Agamotto dark and silent. "Do you understand what you've done?" His voice was quiet, controlled, but beneath it ran currents of terror. "You've proven that the fundamental laws maintaining reality can be overcome. You've shown that there are cracks in the foundation. Every cosmic entity, every abstract force, every being that depends on those laws for existence is now aware that they're vulnerable." Is that bad? It's apocalyptic. You've just become the most important being in the multiverse, and not in a good way. Everything from gods to demons to things without names will either want to study you, control you, or destroy you. You're not just strong anymore. You're proof that strength can trump everything, and that terrifies beings that have existed since before time began. Oh. Saitama considered this. But some of them might be really strong, right? Strong enough to actually fight? Strange closed his eyes, a gesture of pure despair, because that was the real nightmare, wasn't it? Saitama didn't care about cosmic politics or multiversal stability or the metaphysical implications of his existence. He just wanted a good fight. And now, by defending him, by standing with him against the tribunal, they just painted targets on Earth and every dimension connected to it. Steve Rogers stepped forward, shield still raised, always the soldier, always ready. "Then we'll deal with whatever comes together. That's what the Avengers do." "Cap's right," Tony said, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. "We've faced impossible odds before. This is just, slightly more impossible. We'll figure it out." Saitama looked at them, these heroes who had welcomed him, given him purpose, stood by him even when it would have been easier to step aside. He saw their fear, their determination, their absolute refusal to abandon him, despite the cosmic consequences. Something shifted in his chest, a warmth he hadn't felt since he trained himself into isolation back home. "Thanks," he said simply. "I know I'm a pain to have around." "Yeah, you are. But you're our pain, so we'll make it work." The crisis passed temporarily. The world returned to its regular chaos. Threats emerging and being dealt with, some by the Avengers, most by Saitama, all with varying degrees of anticlimactic resolution. But there was a change now, a tension underlying every victory. Because they all knew, from the newest S.H.I.E.L.D. recruit to the Sorcerer Supreme himself, that they were living on borrowed time. Something was coming. Something worse than Annihilus. Worse than the tribunal. Worse than anything Earth had faced. The tribunal had said so much, had warned of older things, deeper laws, beings that predate this iteration of reality. They will come, and when they do, your strength may not be enough. "Good," Saitama said. "We will be ready." But for the first time in a long time, something was different about his voice. Something he had forgotten existed, but now seemed to take precedence.
Barlow watched Saitama sometimes in quiet moments between crises, watched him train, performing the same routine that had remade him. 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, 10 kilometers running. He didn't need to anymore. His body was beyond such things, but he did it anyway, a ritual connecting him to the person he'd been before strength had isolated him. And in those moments, Barlow saw not a cosmic threat or an impossible warrior, but a man who had sacrificed connection for power and was desperately trying to find his way back. 3 months after the tribunal's judgment, the next crisis emerged, not from space or other dimensions, but from Earth itself. The Celestials, ancient cosmic beings who had seeded life across the universe, returned to judge their experiment. A massive gleaming figure appeared in the Pacific Ocean, dwarfing mountains, its very presence causing tides to shift and tectonic plates to groan. Arishem the Judge had come to evaluate whether Earth deserved to continue existing. The Eternals, Earth's hidden protectors, revealed themselves to the Avengers in a panic. Their purpose, they explained, had been to shepherd humanity until the Celestials returned to ensure the planet would pass judgment. But now, with Saitama's existence, with the cosmic disruption he represented, they feared the judgment would be negative, Earth would be unmade, and all life upon it erased as a failed experiment. Saitama listened to this explanation with increasing confusion. "So you're saying the big robot guy is going to destroy Earth because I'm here?" "Essentially, yes," Sersi, the Eternal Speaker, said. "The Celestials maintain balance through rigorous culling. Anomalies like you represent failures in their design. They will not tolerate your continued existence." "Okay." Saitama stood, cape materializing around his shoulders. "I'll go talk to him." "Talk?" Icarus, power incarnate among the Eternals, looked incredulous. "You cannot speak with a Celestial. You cannot negotiate with cosmic design. You can only accept judgment or be destroyed resisting it." "Or I could punch him?" Saitama said reasonably. "If he's going to destroy Earth because of me, that seems like the fastest solution." "You cannot fight a Celestial. They are beyond gods. Beyond, yeah, people keep saying things are beyond me, but then I punch them and they stop being a problem." Saitama walked toward the balcony, looking out at the Pacific, where Arishem towered over the ocean, a monument to cosmic power. "Besides, if I don't do something, everyone here dies because of me. That's not really acceptable." He jumped. And this time, there was no hesitation, no testing. He launched himself toward the Celestial with the full force of his conviction. A yellow comet streaking across the sky, cape trailing like a battle standard. The distance between New York and the Pacific vanished in seconds, and he arrived in front of Arishem's face, hovering at eye level with something so vast that perspective became meaningless. The Celestial's eyes, cosmic furnaces that burned with the light of creation itself, focused on him. When it spoke, the words bypassed language, concepts implanted directly into consciousness. Anomaly, failure, corruption in the design. You will be unmade so the experiment may continue. "No," Saitama said. "Earth stays. If you have a problem with me, that's fine, but everyone else here is innocent. Judge me if you want, but leave them alone." "Separation is impossible. Your existence taints the entire sphere. The experiment has failed. Judgment. Extermination." Arishem raised one hand, fingers larger than aircraft carriers, and began to press down, not physically, but conceptually, pushing reality itself toward Earth's surface, intending to compress the planet into a singularity and end the experiment with absolute finality. The ocean began to rise, drawn upward by forces that had nothing to do with gravity and everything to do with existence deciding to collapse. Saitama flew upward, positioned himself between the Celestial's hand and Earth, and pushed back. The strain showed on his face for the first time since arriving in this universe. Not pain, not exhaustion, but effort. Real effort. His muscles corded, his jaw set, his entire body focused on the simple act of resisting cosmic will made manifest. The Celestial pushed harder, more force behind it than had been used to seed life across galaxies, and Saitama matched it, held it, refused to let it pass. For 30 seconds they remained locked, irresistible force meeting immovable object, and reality screamed around them. The ocean boiled, the sky tore.
Dimensional barriers grew thin as the sheer concentration of power threatened to rupture the fabric between worlds. On Earth, every mystic felt it. Strange and the other sorcerers throwing up shields around population centers, trying desperately to contain the spillover from a battle that was reshaping the rules of physics. Then Saitama spoke, voice strained but clear. I said, no. He pushed back harder, not gradually, not with increasing effort, but with sudden, absolute force, going from resistance to counterattack in a single moment. His hands, ordinary and human, pressed against cosmic might and forced it backward. Ereshem's fingers began to bend, metal that had withstood the birth of universes, groaning under impossible pressure. The Celestial pulled back its hand, and there was something in the gesture that might have been surprise. Impossible. You match celestial might. You who are merely biological, merely temporary, you resist eternal design. I'm going to do more than resist, Saitama said, and wound up for a punch. I'm going to tell you that Earth is off limits. You want to judge someone? Judge me. But you leave everyone else alone.
He punched. His fist traveled perhaps 3 feet, connecting with Ereshem's chest, a point of contact so small compared to the celestial scale that it should have been meaningless. But the impact traveled through cosmic metal, through energy systems that powered creation itself, through the fundamental structure of what made a celestial function. And Ereshem staggered, actually staggered, its massive form swaying, its furnace eyes flickering with something that might have been pain. You damage celestial form. This should not be. Lots of things shouldn't be, Saitama said, readying another punch. I shouldn't be this strong. You shouldn't be judging people for existing wrong. Seems like we're both defying cosmic rules today. He punched again and again, a flurry of blows that individually could crack planets, delivered with the precision of a trained fighter and the force of cosmic spite. Each impact rang out across dimensions, bells tolling the end of absolute certainty. Ereshem tried to retreat, to teleport, to access the cosmic functions that made Celestials untouchable, and found them all failing under the simple reality that Saitama was hitting it harder than anything had ever hit it before. The other Celestials felt it across space and time and dimension, felt their brother's distress call, and began to converge. 3 more appeared over Earth's oceans, Isen, Exodar, and Tiamat, each carrying instruments of cosmic judgment, each radiating power that had unmade civilizations for lesser offenses than striking a celestial. Saitama looked at them, then at Ereshem, then back at them. Okay, he said, and his voice carried something that might have been excitement. Now we're getting somewhere. He moved faster than light, faster than thought, a blur of yellow and red that bounced between celestials like a pinball. Each contact point erupted in shock waves that made the ocean's surface flash evaporate. He punched Isen in the faceplate, cratering cosmic metal, kicked Exodar hard enough to send the massive form tumbling into orbit, grabbed Tiamat's arm and used it to batter Ereshem. Cosmic beings wielded as weapons against each other. The fundamental wrongness of it was apparent to every witness. The Celestials fought back, energy beams that had carved mountains, weapons that twisted space and time, judgment protocols designed to unmake rebellious creations. All of it hit Saitama, washed over him, and had 0 effect. He was beyond their ability to judge, beyond their power to destroy, and with each punch, he drove that fact home more completely. Strange watched from Earth, every mystical sense he possessed overwhelmed by the sheer scale of what was happening. He's winning, he said, voice hollow. He's actually winning against multiple Celestials. We're watching the fundamental hierarchy of cosmic power being rewritten in real time. Is that good or bad? Tony asked, his usual humor absent. I don't know. Both? Neither? We're past the point where those categories mean anything. Strange turned away from the observation spell, unable to watch anymore.
He's become something that the universe can't categorize, can't control, can't even properly acknowledge, and he's doing it by just being really, really good at punching things. In the Pacific, Saitama stopped mid-fight, hovering before the four Celestials who were slowly regenerating from his assault. "I'm going to say this once," he said, voice carrying across dimensions through sheer force of will. "Earth is under my protection now. You don't get to judge it. You don't get to destroy it. You don't get to do anything to it without going through me first." And he gestured at the damaged Celestials, at the proof of what he could do. I think we all know how that turns out. The Celestials conferred, communication passing between them in wavelengths that predated light. Then Erisham spoke, and its voice carried the weight of acceptance. "The experiment continues under observation. Anomaly, you have proven superiority in this iteration. But understand, there are layers beyond Celestials, forces that make our might seem as nothing. You have merely delayed judgment, not prevented it." "That's fine. When those forces show up, I'll be ready. For now, Earth gets to keep existing." The Celestials departed, fading from Earth's dimension with a grace that belied the beating they'd just received. Saitama floated alone over the Pacific, looking at the devastation caused by his fight. The displaced water, the atmospheric damage, the rent in space-time that would take weeks to fully heal. He'd saved Earth again, had driven off cosmic judgment itself, and all he felt was that same hollow disappointment. Four Celestials, ancient cosmic beings, powers that had shaped the universe itself, and they'd barely made him try. He returned to New York to find a crowd waiting, not just the Avengers, but nearly every hero on Earth. The Fantastic Four, the X-Men, the Defenders, Spider-Man swinging in from patrol, even underwater heroes like Namor, who'd felt the ocean's distress call. They stood in silence as he landed, taking in the man who had just casually redefined the possible. Charles Xavier wheeled forward, his mind the most powerful on Earth, and spoke with the weight of someone choosing words carefully. "Saitama, what you did today saved billions of lives, but it also changed everything. You've proven that cosmic order isn't absolute, that the hierarchies we thought immutable can be overcome through pure strength. That makes you the most valuable asset in the universe, and the most dangerous. I know, the tribunal said the same thing, that I've broken something fundamental. Have you considered that they might be right, that your very existence might be destabilizing reality itself?"
Yeah, I think about it a lot. Saitama looked at his hands, ordinary and unchanged. Back home, I wanted to be a hero, someone who could save people with a smile. But I got so strong that nothing could challenge me. And somewhere along the way, I stopped being a hero and became something else. A disaster waiting to happen. A problem everyone had to work around. He looked up at the assembled heroes, at faces mixing gratitude and fear. I thought maybe here would be different, but I'm starting to think I'm the same problem everywhere. "No," Peter Parker stepped forward, mask pulled back, teenage earnestness shining through. "You're not a problem. You're a person who happens to be incredibly strong. And yeah, that's complicated, but that doesn't make you a disaster. We just have to figure out how to make it work." "Kid's right," Logan growled from the crowd, adamantium claws visible. "You pulled your punches today. I saw it. You could have killed those Celestials, but you didn't. You drove them off, made your point, and stopped. That's restraint. That's heroism." "Besides," Johnny Storm added, flames dancing along his shoulders, "you punched 4 cosmic gods in the face and told them Earth was off limits. That's the coolest thing anyone's ever done. We're throwing you a parade." Despite everything, Saitama smiled. Small and fleeting, but genuine. These people, these heroes, they saw him as one of them, not as a threat or a weapon or a cosmic anomaly, but as a person trying to do good with the abilities he had. It wasn't the fight he'd been hoping for, wasn't the challenge that would make him feel alive again, but it was something better. It was belonging.
The celebration lasted into the night. Heroes gathering at Avengers Tower, sharing stories and theories and speculations about what would come next. Strange remained on the periphery, watching Saitama interact with the others. Seeing the way he slowly relaxed, let his guard down, started to actually enjoy himself. And the sorcerer felt his chest tighten with a realization he'd been avoiding. This peace wouldn't last. The Celestials were right. There were forces beyond them, entities that would view Saitama's existence as an existential threat. And when they came, they wouldn't stop with judgment or observation. They would seek to unmake him, to erase the error he represented, and Earth would be collateral damage in that confrontation. Unless they found a way to protect him, to hide him, or to somehow fix whatever cosmic law he was violating, everyone on this planet was living on borrowed time. Strange sought out Barlow later that night, found him on the observation deck staring out at the city lights. "You're his liaison. You know him better than most of us. Is there any way to get him to leave, to find another universe, another dimension, somewhere that his presence wouldn't paint a target on billions of innocents?" Barlow was quiet for a long moment. "Would you ask the same of the Hulk, of Thor, of anyone else whose power makes them dangerous? This is different." "How? Because the threat is bigger? Because the consequences are cosmic instead of global?" Barlow turned to face Strange, and there was steel in his voice. "He's a person. He's saved this world twice now. He's earned the right to stay, regardless of what comes looking for him. And honestly, Doctor, I think he's our best chance at surviving whatever that is." "You don't understand the forces we're talking about." "Maybe not, but I understand that Saitama just told the universe's architects to back off, and they did. So maybe, just maybe, instead of trying to get rid of him, we should be figuring out how to support him." Strange had no answer to that. He departed in a swirl of golden light, returning to the sanctum to consult with entities and tomes that might offer guidance, knowing already that none would satisfy. The problem with Saitama wasn't that he was too strong. It was that he was strong in a way that broke the rules. And you couldn't strategize around that. Couldn't plan for it. Couldn't even properly understand it. You could only accept it, and hope that when the real test came, acceptance would be enough. 6 months passed. Saitama settled into life as an Avenger, developing routines, forming friendships, slowly letting go of the isolation that had defined his existence. He learned that Peter Parker was a science prodigy beneath the mask, spent hours listening to the kids' enthusiastic explanations of things he didn't understand. He sparred with Thor, gentle bouts where they both pulled their punches to absurd degrees, finding camaraderie and shared restraint. He cooked with Steve, learning that Captain America made terrible eggs, but exceptional pancakes. He even tolerated Tony's endless scanning and testing, understanding that the engineer needed to make sense of things, even if sense was impossible. Barlow watched it all, filing reports that grew increasingly optimistic. Maybe, he thought, maybe this could work. Maybe Saitama could be both impossibly strong and functionally human, could break cosmic law and still find a place to belong. He should have known better. The sky cracked open above New York on a Sunday morning in April. Not with the presence of the tribunal or the arrival of Celestials, but with something older that made even Strange's protections fail before it fully manifested. Reality peeled back like rotted fabric, and through the wound came something that had no name, because names implied limitation. It was vast and small simultaneously, everywhere and nowhere, a concept given form that form couldn't properly contain. The closest mortal minds could come to comprehending it was as a judge, but that felt infinitely short of what it truly was. The one above all, the entity that sat above even the living tribunal, the source and end of all Marvel continuity, had descended to examine the anomaly personally.
Strange felt it and dropped to his knees, every instinct screaming that this was beyond him, beyond anyone, beyond the scope of what mortal or God could face. The other heroes felt it too, a presence so fundamental that attempting to perceive it was like trying to see your own eyes. Only Saitama seemed unaffected, looking up at the impossible thing with mild curiosity. "Are you here to judge me too?" he asked. The presence didn't speak so much as make its intentions known directly to every mind on earth. This was the ultimate authority, the being that even the living tribunal served, and it had come to fix an error in its creation, an impossibility that had somehow slipped through the cracks of infinite design. It looked at Saitama, and in looking, understood everything. It saw his training, his transformation, his journey across dimensional barriers, his battles here, his victories and disappointments, and quiet moments of connection. It saw a being that shouldn't exist, managing to exist anyway through sheer stubborn refusal to be limited. It saw an error, yes, but also a marvel, a proof that even infinite systems contained room for surprise. The judgment, when it came, was this: Saitama could stay, but not as he was. His power would be bound, contained, reduced to something that fit within universal constants. He would remain strong, perhaps the strongest mortal on Earth, but he would no longer be unlimited. The fights would have stakes again. Victory would require effort. He would, in essence, be fixed, made to fit. Saitama listened to this judgment, felt the power begin to take hold, felt something fundamental starting to change in his structure, his strength beginning to quantify, to acquire limits, to become the kind of power that followed rules. And he made a choice. "No," he said. The presence paused. This was not something that received refusal. This was the ultimate authority, the one above all, the final word in any cosmic dispute. Refusal was not possible because nothing existed that could refuse it. Except, apparently, a bald man in a hero costume who had spent 3 years doing push-ups. "I understand what you're trying to do," Saitama continued, voice steady. "You're trying to make me fit, to put me in a box where I make sense. But I can't accept that. Not because I want to stay this strong, but because if you can do this to me, you can do it to anyone. And that means everyone's just playing out a script you already wrote." The presence communicated again, concepts, vast and terrible. It was not a script, it was order. It was the structure that allowed existence to persist. Without limits, without laws, there was only chaos. "Maybe," Saitama said, "but isn't chaos better than being controlled? I broke your limits, not by cheating or using some cosmic trick, but simply by trying harder than anyone else. And if that's possible, if someone can surpass your design through effort alone, doesn't that mean your creation is working? That you made something capable of surprise, growth, and becoming more than you anticipated?" A heavy silence followed. Every hero and every being capable of sensing this moment held their breath, watching as the one above all considered the words from an anomaly no one expected to even speak. Strange felt tears well up, not from fear, but from witnessing a moment unprecedented in the multiverse's entire history, a negotiation with God. Finally, the presence withdrew its power. The judgment was paused, not reversed or canceled, but set aside for further consideration. In that space, its view of Saitama shifted from seeing him as an error to regarding him as a question, a living challenge to the rules that govern existence. Before departing, it sent one last message to Saitama and all Earth. "You have argued well, anomaly.
Though you exist beyond my design, you have shown that existence is still valuable through restraint, community, and sacrifice. You may continue, but know that you are now held to a higher standard than any other being. Use your impossible power wisely, or the next judgment will be final. As reality healed, the presence faded, and Saitama stood in the morning light, unchanged and unlimited, still the walking paradox that defied cosmic law simply by existing. He looked at the gathered heroes, faces mixed with relief, awe, and lingering fear. Then, breaking the silence, he said, "So, anyone else want breakfast? I'm starving." Their laughter broke the tension, nervous and loud, but sincere. Together they moved toward the tower, seeking food, warmth, and a sense of normalcy. But all knew, from the newest recruit to the Sorcerer Supreme, nothing would ever be the same. They had just witnessed the impossible, convinced the supreme authority of the multiverse that impossibility has value. Strange walked beside Barlow in silence, both absorbing the enormity of what had happened. Finally, the sorcerer said, "He talked God out of erasing him." Barlow answered quietly, "Yep, that's our teammate. We're probably doomed, but at least we'll go down swinging." They arrived at the tower to find Saitama already in the kitchen, cape draped over a chair, working with Steve on a lavish breakfast. Their easy rhythm, casual conversation about nothing important, was so mundane that it made Barlow's chest tighten with a flicker of hope. Maybe this could work. Maybe the impossible could belong. Maybe the anomaly that shattered reality could still be a hero. Only time would tell. And after all they had faced, time suddenly felt precious, finite, something to be savored.
So they ate breakfast together, all of Earth's mightiest heroes, and one bald man in a yellow suit, trying not to think about the judgment still to come, because something always comes. But for now, in this moment, they were united, and that was enough.